A couple of weeks ago, I was rewatching some old interviews of Warren Buffett, and I came across his interview with CNBC's Becky Quick from 2017. I remember watching that interview as it was happening. My enduring memory of that interview, though, is of Buffett's retelling of Berkshire and 3G's joint short-lived attempt at taking over Unilever in a $143 billion deal. It stuck with me for two reasons primarily. First, because of Buffett's somewhat politically incorrect joke about women and diplomats. But more importantly, and secondly, because of the grace and good humor with which Buffett accepted this fairly public failed takeover attempt. Now, cut to 2024 and Unilever's decision to demerge its ice cream business globally. The multi-billion-dollar question, though, is why would Unilever take this decision, and what does it mean for shareholders in India and around the world? The more interesting question, though, is could this demerger finally allow Warren Buffett and Berkshire to take a slice of the HUL pie? As always, nothing in this video is investment advice, nor a recommendation to or not to buy, sell, or hold any security. We're happy to partner with the Zerodha Media Network to bring you informative and useful insights and information from the world of business and investing. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Unilever, in its official press release announcing the demerger, made the following statement. The Unilever board is confident that the future growth potential of ice cream will be better delivered under a different ownership structure. Of course, at the time of demerging divisions, corporates will happily explain the need for greater autonomy. The question I always have is why are boards so open about the fact that standing under the umbrella strangles the growth potential of a business? And of course, all of a sudden having different divisions under the same company no longer offers sufficient synergies. But this is a discussion for another day. Coming back to the main point, Unilever decides to demerge its ice cream business. Immediately, speculation begins as to where this business is going to end up and can it lead to a potential sale of the division. Names like Nestle are touted as obvious buyers given the nature and scale of the business. Globally, Unilever sells about $8.5 billion worth of ice cream annually and accounts for 5 of the world's 10 largest ice cream brands. Hindustan Unilever, or HUL, which is Unilever's listed India arm, accounts for roughly 1,900 crores or about $230 million of those overall sales. Now, the primary difference between the ice cream business and most other food-based consumer goods businesses is really the logistics and supply chain. Ice cream requires a sophisticated cold chain logistics operation and often has a tougher fight for distribution. Now, as a result of these differences, the ice cream business tends to have a lower margin profile and returns on capital than other major FMCG categories, as it necessitates greater capital intensity and investment. In India, ice cream forms a part of HUL's food and refreshment division. While we still don't know all the numbers of the ice cream business exactly, we can see that that division as a whole has an EBIT margin of about 18.5% versus the overall company's EBIT margin of about 21.5%. The standalone ice cream business is estimated to have an EBIT margin somewhere between mid to high single digits. The food division's return on capital employed is also materially lower than that of the company as a whole. In 2024, the global ice cream business of Unilever earned an operating profit of about $595 million on sales of about $8.6 billion, which is a sub 7% margin. For some context, the overall company's operating margin is over 15%. Unilever globally has a stated desire to focus on core, high-performing brands and divisions and to shed businesses orthogonal to this desire. That is why the parent has divested multiple businesses in recent times, including in some ways most notably the Dollar Shave Club, which the company famously bought for $1 billion in 2016. It appears that the ice cream business, despite its size, is not a strategic growth area for Unilever, primarily driven by the lower margins and greater capital intensity. What this probably tells us is that the Unilever board globally is more focused on margins and returns than on growth. But what that means is that iconic ice cream brands like Ben & Jerry's and Magnum are now there for the taking. And this brings us to the more interesting part of the story, which is where does the ice cream business eventually end up? Nestle, through its JV Froneri, is an obvious buyer given the fact that it's the world's largest food company, and especially considering its existing portfolio of ice cream brands such as Movenpick. Other potential candidates are General Mills, Mayfield Dairy, Danone. Assuming a sale of the entire global ice cream business rather than a piecemeal, series of transactions with different buyers in different markets, Unilever could make something in the region of $20 billion from a sale. That number, in and of itself, in all likelihood, precludes all suitors other than Danone, General Mills, and Nestle. And selling to any of these would trigger all sorts of antitrust issues around the world, and any potential deal would inevitably involve divesting brands to placate regulators. The wild cards in all of this are the private equity players, and there's no telling what they would do in such a situation. But the most interesting potential buyer is the man with the elephant gun, Warren Buffett, in conjunction with 3G Capital, his partners in Kraft Heinz, had an aborted takeover attempt of Unilever as a whole in 2017. At the time, they offered $143 billion for the company as a whole, but quickly withdrew their offer when the Unilever board declared its aversion to the deal. Buffett, of course, famously refrains from any sort of hostile takeovers. This time around, though, they may find a much more willing seller in Unilever. Whether the deal would be done through Kraft Heinz is tough to say at this juncture. The more important point to note, though, is that the ice cream business is right up Buffett's alley. It's a business he understands well and has all the traits he looks for: iconic brands, global distribution, and dramatic scale. The price, of course, would not be a hindrance. If anything, the price could actually be an incentive for Buffett, as it would allow Berkshire to deploy a fairly meaningful portion of its cash pile into a control acquisition, which cash pile now stands at over $300 billion. The valuation, of course, is a whole other matter. But Berkshire and 3G would benefit from the fact that they could easily do an all-cash deal, which may not be forthcoming from other operating competitors like Nestle, Danone, etc., who may prefer the inclusion of a share swap in any takeover. The challenge with partnering with 3G on this deal, though, is that one, Buffett only gets a share of the pie rather than the business as a whole, of course, and two, which may actually be the bigger concern for him, is that it would employ a meaningful amount of debt, given 3G Capital's involvement, both of which would mean a smaller deal for Buffett and Berkshire. On the other hand, though, by partnering with 3G, it would solve Buffett's problem of managing operations. 3G has proved its operating chops in a series of transactions, both with Buffett and otherwise, in these massive global takeovers of consumer brands. I must add here, though, that there is no official announcement from Berkshire or any of these companies that they intend to acquire Unilever's ice cream business. Unilever itself has not committed to selling the business, and in the absence of the right price may simply choose to let the demerged entity operate on its own. Interestingly, the spin-off itself has important implications for shareholders of Unilever as well as HUL shareholders in India. Shedding the ice cream business is immediately margin and return accretive. It significantly reduces the capital investment required, rendering the remaining business far more capital efficient. In Unilever's case, there is also the matter of outstanding debts of over $25 billion, which could be dramatically reduced as a result of any such deal, while additionally allowing for increased buybacks by an extra $1.5 billion. HUL, of course, has no such debt issues. Unilever arguably has the most valuable ice cream brand in the world. And we know Buffett is a fan of desserts, both for personal consumption and as a business. While the attempt to take over Unilever as a whole in 2017 was quickly aborted, he may just get another bite at the apple, or a part of it at least, soon enough. Let me know what you think of the demerger and who could potentially buy the business in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.